Okay, Annie Lala, welcome to Why Isn't Everyone Doing This? I have been looking forward to this episode and marinating in your mastery for a very long time. Okay, so we had the fortune of being at a party this weekend. It was
Yes.
so fun. And you told a story last night that I was like, wait, start with this story because it's mind-blowing. So I'm trying to think of how to set you up, but basically, like, what we want to talk about is why isn't everyone believing in true love? And what's crazy to me is that you're a love coach, you're
Yes.
married,
Yes.
amazing man, and yet you needed like a life-altering, dramatic incident given to you from the cosmos in order for you to really believe in true love. So can you tell us this story?
Yes. So I thought I believed in love. I mean, I've been a love coach for a long time, long before I met my husband. And not just a love coach, someone who stood fiercely for romantic relationships being extraordinary and inspiring in a context for your evolution and your growth. And I met the most inspiring man I'd ever known. We fell in love and we created this amazing life together. We got married, even though he didn't believe in love, marriage, or kids, all of which we have right now. But that's another part of the story. And it wasn't until several years in, where I had a health crisis that challenged my relationship.
Can you share what the health crisis was?
Basically, I had a gene, the BRCA1 gene, which predisposes you 90% to getting breast or ovarian cancer. And I found out this genetic result, and I was like, oh my God, I need to prophylactically, I was done having kids. I need to prophylactically remove my uterus, my ovaries, the physical ones. I still have the energetic ones, and my breasts in order to bring the percentage down from 90% basically down to like 0.1. So I did that. And after I had my ovaries removed in the pathology lab, they found small, tiny 2-millimeter tumors in my ovaries. So I had ovarian cancer, stage 1, which is very rare. Usually it's found stage 3, 4. By that time, it's very late in the process, and it's called the silent killer. So it's a very dangerous cancer. And my doctor had never seen it that stage, early stage before. So we were in this dilemma what to do, and my doctor said, look, let's just be absolutely sure we got it all, and I want to put you through 6 months of chemo, and hopefully you never see this again for the rest of your life. And that was a terrifying inquiry to be in. Like, what do I do? Chemo, alternative, whatever. But I watched my husband move through that terrain with such commitment and grace. And I was I'm dancing with my mortality. When you get a diagnosis of cancer, you're like, oh shit, what does this mean? I now realize it was a curriculum that I created for myself. But during that process, I saw my husband literally learn from kindergarten level how to support me. Like, he didn't know how. He didn't know how to emotionally support me. He didn't know how to physically support me. He'd be kind of floundering around trying to figure it out. And I just saw him open his laptop one day, and he opened a document called How to Support Annie When She's Struggling, physically, emotionally, intellectually. And he kept writing things down every single day, things that he'd learned, things that he noticed I got frustrated with, especially when I was going through chemo. He showed up every single chemo session at the hospital with me. We dressed up in giant onesies, like rabbits and like cartoon characters, and we entertained all the people in the chemo lab. And he just was willing to do it with me, right beside me. And never once did I even for a minute think that this would undermine our relationship, our love, and his commitment. And I don't know.
What do you mean undermine?
Like, when you're going through a diagnosis like that, or what feels like it could be a terminal illness. I mean, it's not, but your self-esteem reduces. You're like, I'm sick.
I'm a burden.
What if I don't make it? I'm not healthy like another woman might be. I'm not sexy. I might die. Like, all of that shit's not attractive. And so for my man to just step up and be like, I love you fucking no matter what, and I will go to every chemo session with you, and I'm going to be at your side, and I'm going to learn how to love you the way you need, even if it's not native to me. I just all my stories about maybe he doesn't really love me got bankrupted by it. And so I realized through that process that I actually hadn't really fully believed in true love, despite being a teacher and a coach and a leader and selling it to everybody else. And the reason I am so good at selling true love and the possibility and how to generate faith in it to everybody else is because I am the world's biggest cynic. I literally go into spirals of despair around, this is never going to work. Oh my God, we have to get divorced. This is fucked. so often that there is no crater out of hell that I haven't got a ladder for.
Wow.
So when my clients come to me with their disempowering frames, or it's not going to work, or I don't believe in this, I already been there, done that. And so I have tools in my pocket ready to go. And that's why there's almost nobody that I can't generate faith with and then teach them how to do it for themselves. And I really think that's the unifying feature of why my coaching makes a difference, is I'm teaching my clients how to generate faith from zero evidence, from zero proof. Faith is not based on the past or the status quo. Faith is based on having the courage and the audacity to believe in something so good, true, and beautiful that it cannot help to come to be.
Which is manifesting.
Exactly.
Like, that is manifesting.
Exactly. And if you try to extrapolate from what has been or what you see now, you're not generating with faith. You're just taking the past and putting it in the future.
Mm-hmm.
And so it takes the ability to be a visionary, to create from zero. In all situations, all artists do this, but as a lover, you are an artist in the ability to faith your relationship into persistence.
And do you find that this works for people manifesting true love who are single and manifesting true love who are already in a relationship?
Absolutely.
You can do it either way.
Yeah. So if you're single, when I bump into singles who've like been more than 6 months looking and they're feeling disempowered, when I look under the hood, what I see is some form of skepticism or cynicism about either true love, whether it exists, about whether they deserve it, they're worthy, whether it's ever going to happen for them. Like maybe they believe it exists out there for other people, but not for them. So I want to find, where is the cynicism? Where is the kernel of skepticism, disempowerment, and how is that protecting them? The only reason you have cynicism is because you're
protecting yourself from optimism.
Protecting yourself from heartbreak. So every cynic is a failed idealist, is an idealist who had a dream, and that dream was so beautiful and so exquisite, and at some point in their life, that dream got dashed to the curb.
Mm-hmm.
And every cynic has a little ember in their heart that's still glowing and wanting to believe. Because if they didn't have that, they'd be neutral about the situation. They wouldn't be cynical. So the minute I see someone cynical, I go, oh, there's an ember of possibility still in your heart, and there's a bitterness because it hasn't come to pass. So I'm going to sneak in there and blow on that ember and reignite your relationship to the possibility.
Do you find that the cynicism is usually linked to the dream that was dashed? Like, is that your doorway in?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And it's almost like they're waiting for someone to re-enroll them in that possibility and not fall for their bitterness, not fall for their cynicism. I never fall for the frame my client has about something not working, or their argument for smallness, or their disbelief in themselves. So I have to hold that vision and sell them back on their own vision that they didn't even know they have, and give them permission to reclaim the relationship to that dream.
But is there ever a time where you're coaching a couple,
yes,
and you're like, oh no, like they should not be together? And what do you do in that instance?
Yeah. So what I've learned is that when a couple is together, any couple that's still together, no matter whether they're fighting, getting along, whatever, they're supposed to be together.
If they are together, they're supposed
to be together. Here's what I realized. Every couple came to constellate together in order to get a particular nutrient or education. It's a kind of school. It's a dojo, the relationship. And the couple won't graduate from that school until they get the nutrient of the education that they came for. And that's when they'll either, graduate from that experience, or there are some relationships that are so infinitely educational, you are continuously enrolled. And that's your true love relationship. Mm-hmm. And so when a couple's together, I'm never trying to break them up. I'm just asking questions, the answers to which will bring them face to face with where they are in their progress of getting the nutrient or the education, and making sure they get it.
I love what you said to me, where you're like, all right, look, this is either the one or practice for the one. And I've just kept that in the back of my head as a bit of a slogan, not a mantra, because we use mantras in a very different context at Ziva, but as a slogan.
Yeah.
This is either the one or practice for the one.
Is either
so
the one
bring your A game.
Bring your A game. Exactly. Bring your A game. When Olympic athletes practice Monday to Friday before they go for their big, Olympic experience, they bring their A game every morning. They don't bring a half-ass game because it's not the Olympics. You practice bringing your A game in everyday life, and then when your partner shows up, you've already got the musculature, the emotional musculature to be interacting in a way that's commensurate and congruent with your ideal self in a relationship. And so with singles, I'm often giving them one piece of advice constantly. And just yesterday at the party, I gave this girl the advice. I'm going to give you the 2 best pieces of advice I have for singles.
Okay.
So the first one is find circumstances in which you get to express your dharmic flow state, express your art, your creativity, your purpose. That's your bird call. So we're looking for a soulmate. So the sound of your soul comes through your art. So any public forum, physical or online, where you're doing your soul's song, that is your bird call. Go out and do your art in the world. And as you make your art, the person in the audience that most responds to that, that's how they find you. So you need to be out there doing your bird calls. That's the first thing. You can't be in your mama's basement playing video games. You've got to be out there.
Well, I just want to tell a story about this because you said that to me a few months ago. We were in this priestess ceremony and I was newly single and you were like, go be in your dharmic, like do your thing. Like you're
in public forums.
In public forums. And I ended up leading sex magic with Lalla and Babak at A-Fest.
Yes.
And there was like 60 people, like all like pleasuring themselves. It was wild and amazing. And there was this man there and I was like putting coconut oil in everyone's hands. And I squirted coconut oil in his hand. And we had a meeting leading sex magic, which a lot of people would be so outrageously triggered, turned off, jealous. They would think that was audacious. They would just be like, no way. I'm not interested in someone that would do that for a living. And there was a man there that was just like, oh my gosh, you. Like, I want to come and visit you. I want to come and learn more about this. And
he was in the audience. He saw you doing your beautiful channeled dharma.
yes.
And he responded to it.
Correct.
Perfect.
Yes, I'm just saying that thank you for that because it was good advice and it led to an exploration. And so thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's one thing is get out and do your bird call. And the second thing is, say you're a woman and you're looking for a male partner. Treat every single man you meet, old man at the pharmacy, 4-year-old boy in the park, teenage guy, Starbucks barista, every man you interact with, work, play, whatever. Treat them as if they are an avatar of your soulmate sent back in time to interview you and see where you are in your development as a queen.
Wow. Okay, I've not heard this one before. Tell me.
Okay, so every single man you interact with, I'm not saying you flirt with them. You interact with them as a fellow human with dignity and reverence and self-respect.
Okay, so like whatever gender you are and whatever gender you're attracted to,
yes.
that it's just like you're interacting with this gender as if they are your soulmate.
Not this gender, this person. So
okay.
this person in front of you, this 60-year-old man in the pharmacy, I'm not going to mate with him. I'm not trying to be in a relationship with him. But he has a king in him. And the fastest way to have his king feel seen is for me to be in my queen. And what it means to be in my queen is to treat that human with reverence, respect, dignity, beauty. And I don't care if it's a 3-second interaction at the Starbucks as you hand them the money. You're interacting with that Starbucks barista as if right after the interaction, they're going to send an energetic email to your future soulmate with an update on how they felt after the interaction, how they felt inside. And what it does is it forces you to bring your highest game in an interaction with a man. Most, say, if a woman's looking for a man, most women, when they're interacting with men, in general, have some block, especially if they're single, around the masculine. And anytime they're around men, any kind of man, there's some program being played that's interfering with their full fleshed out aliveness and their femininity. So this mitigates that. It forces you into your queen. One of the ways I also say it is any man you interact with, if you're a woman and you're looking for a male partner.
And you're straight.
If you're interacting with a man, imagine the mother of that man is standing just beside him, off to the left, invisibly. How would you interact with him so that she looks at you with gratitude?
That the mother looks at you with gratitude because of the way that you handled this interaction.
Even if you're saying no to a guy trying to pick you up at a club. How would you interact with him so that she's like grateful of you conserving his dignity while you say, no, I'm married, I'm not going to be, I'm not available. But can you do it in a way that conserves his dignity, his self-esteem, and that appreciates his humanity?
And what's an example of that with the barista at the coffee shop?
So I'm a mother, not of a son, but of a daughter. And so if I were to see a a gentleman interacting with my daughter, what I want is after the interaction, she feels more delighted with herself, more in love with herself. And even if it's just a wink or a smile. So the Starbucks barista, when I interact with him, I want him to feel like I added to his day, that I conferred appreciation to him as a human being and as a man. I might be cheeky. I might make a joke. I might give him a compliment, but it's either neutral to positive. You want to make sure that you're never leaving an interaction with another human being where their self-esteem is lower than when you found them.
Okay, so this leads to one of the things I really wanted to talk about is that, your ability to be neutral or positive, your ability to vision something into existence is very much influenced by the level of trauma in the past, right? Like all the stuff that you're bringing to that situation. And so—
Hold on a minute. I don't know if that's true.
Okay.
I think that's a belief.
Okay.
And I understand why that belief is held as true. I don't think your ability to vision is hampered. I believe that your sense of deserving the vision can be hampered. Because visioning, I think you get that for free, full tilt. No matter how much trauma you have, you can draw magical, fantastical things with crayons. And, and your imagination sometimes is unleashed even further because you've had the trauma. But maybe feeling deserving. So let's just touch it on self-esteem. I love Nathaniel Branden's definition of self-esteem. He says it has two parts. Self-esteem, the first part of self-esteem is believing in your ability to cope with what life brings you, how resilient you are. Second part of self-esteem is believing that you deserve to be happy. You deserve to be happy in this lifetime, in this moment. Your needs, your wants, your desires are sacred. So you have to cultivate self-esteem on both of these vectors. Usually you're better in one domain over another. And so oftentimes, because of our trauma, we don't have technology. We haven't built the technology to learn to cope because we have arrested development around that trauma. Or based on our early childhood experience, we don't feel worthy and deserving of particular outcomes, or our needs and wants don't feel dignified because we grew up in an environment where either our parents didn't dignify them or they didn't dignify their own. So that's the technology I want individuals to cultivate. Basically, I'm a self-esteem coach. I don't say that, but you always attract someone at the same level of development, a caliber of self-esteem that you have around relationships.
Yeah, this one has really been a bee in my bonnet. So I just want to drill in on this one. You attract a relationship at the level of self-esteem that you have.
Yes, and self-esteem is domain specific. So I have very, very high self-esteem around my relational dynamics, very, very low self-esteem around cooking, organizing, spreadsheets, like all kinds of things. So it's domain specific. So the domain we're talking about is in relational dynamics.
Okay.
So you can be running a company and be the richest man in the world and have very low self-esteem around your relationships.
Okay.
So it's your self-esteem around romantic relationships.
Okay.
Wherever you are in your relational self-esteem, just look at who someone's dating, who their wife is, who their husband is, whatever, who their partner is, and you will know where their self-esteem is in relationships.
And how does one work on your relational self-esteem?
Well, there's a lot of technology. First, you have to become aware and become powerfully related to the fact that maybe you have low self-esteem in this area. And it's fine. It's domain specific. I know where I have low self-esteem and where I struggle to cope and struggle to feel competent. So how do you work on it? Let's see. What I do is I usually help the person start noticing where they are resilient. So they're really good at noticing where they're not resilient. We love to shop for shame and disempowering. We love to shop for evidence that we're not deserving, we're not worthy, and like a way to get a hit of guilt or shame, because we usually have a drug of choice that is our native drug, and we're constantly looking for a hit. So I'll have them start directing their attention to where they are successful in relationships, because they have a story about their own success, and I'm trying to brainwash them at the identity level to see themselves as, actually, I have a secretary that loves working with me. I have a sister-in-law that we connect. Like, there's lots of evidence for your relational self-esteem to be increased. And really, it's about directing your attention. If you want to change a self-concept, a part of your self-concept, you have to direct your attention to the areas in which your behavior is aligned with that self-concept.
Say it one more time.
If you want to upgrade your sense of self, your confidence, your self-esteem around some area, you want to direct your attention to the places in your life where you are winning, where you are succeeding.
Mm-hmm.
So if I want my daughter to see herself as empathic, but she's not very empathic. She is, but let's say she's not. I'll say, you know what? I love the way you empathize with your lizard and worry about whether he's hungry or not. I love the way you tuned into whether daddy was feeling frustrated with what you did. I'm going to highlight the 3 times out of 10 where she was empathic and ignore the 7 times out of 10 where she wasn't.
You're watering the flowers, not the weeds.
Exactly.
Putting your attention on the thing you want to grow.
Yes.
So the way we can grow our relational self-esteem is to continue to water our own flowers, water the places, notice, accolade, celebrate the places where we have been in high relational self-esteem.
Exactly. Or success.
Mhm.
Where have you had a relational interaction where the other person was more in love with themselves in their life after? Like, that's to me the mark of relational self-esteem. Do you interact with people in such a way that when you leave the interaction, both you and them love yourself and your life more?
Ooh, that's so good. How do you think most people are looking at relational success? Like, did I win? Did they love me more than them?
Did I get their approval?
I feel like I have a story, and I've never really thought about this before, of like, did they love me more than I loved them?
In any interaction or romantically?
No, like, I think like in the breakup, right? Because it feels like in the breakup is when you like decide if it was a success or not. And I'm literally just unpacking this in real time.
Yeah.
That I think I have this story that like, oh, well, if they loved me more than I loved them, then I won. Because I think does that make me like avoidant?
Well, I don't like labels like avoidant and anxious, honestly. I have different ways of framing it. I think about the we and the me. There's usually 2 sacred polarities in every relationship. Someone guarding the individuality and independence of each person, and someone guarding the communal us.
I love
so
that.
The guardian of the we and the guardian of the me. And a healthy long-term relationship always has equal amounts of weing and meing, selfing and othering. And so I like to take it out of anxious and avoidant, because who wants to be anxious and avoidant?
Nobody.
Or
attached.
The whole attachment narrative. I love how like the idea is, oh, you have to find a securely attached person. I ain't never met a securely attached person, ever. Because even if you're pretty securely attached, as soon as you fall in love, you start to polarize. Wherever you are, even if you're just a little more anxious or avoidant than your partner, then you polarize each other, because the whole point of being in a relationship is to be an evolutionary container for your growth. So you don't want a securely attached person. You want someone who forces you to develop past your, propensities.
See, I just want to double click on that for a second, because I think that a lot of people's definition of true love or a healthy relationship would be one that like we find each other, we go through the slings and arrows of finding the true love, and then it's happily ever after. And then there are no more triggers and there are no more upsets. And so I just want to really, I know in our world, we're really into this self-help and development, but like most of the world, I think really is running that happily ever after story. So can you just say that again? And like,
I'm on a mission to demolish happily ever after. I am not a fan of happily ever after.
That should be the title of your book, Demolishing Happily Ever After.
Well, happily ever after is so interesting. It comes from fairy tales and sort of fantasy Pollyanna delusions. The opposite of dead is not happy. It's alive. And once you realize that a successful relationship is a relationship that brings out your maximal aliveness. So we're going for alive ever after rather than happily ever after. And every single emotion is in the pantheon of aliveness. I think of true love as the white light of human emotion. When you shine white light through a glass prism, it breaks out into the spectrum of rainbow. When you shine true love through a human heart, it breaks out into the full spectrum of all human emotions, from joy and delight and jealousy and envy and shame and anger and despair and hopelessness, the whole range. And so to say I love you is to say I am willing to feel my ecstasy, my jealousy, my despair, my rage, my hatred. I'm willing to feel the whole spectrum in order to be in this relationship, and not just feel my feelings. I'm going to stand for you feeling yours. That's what love looks like. And most people don't know this. And
because none of us know how to feel our effing feelings.
Well, that's really what my coaching is about. I'm basically helping people feel safe enough and then have the tools and the technology to turn inwards and be with their feelings. And I do not have this mastered. Exactly. We're all on the same team.
Yeah.
We're all selling the same thing. Now for sale. Now for sale. The present moment is the only
for sale. I'm selling now.
We're all great teachers are selling the same thing.
Yeah.
The present moment back to someone who've left it, or you can't really leave it, but you think you've left it. And the only access to the present moment is being fully anchored into your body, which of course, that's what you teach. And so when you when you bring your consciousness into your body, you're attuned to the most cutting edge data coming in from reality through your 5 senses, through your proprioception, interoception. That's fresh data, fresh off the press, rather than living from past experience and historic data. knowledge, which is ossified dead experience. Why would you take stale bread when you have fresh bread coming in every moment? And so feeling your feelings is about literally closing your eyes and turning inwards and tracking where are the sensations in my body. A feeling is a matrix of physical sensations in the body. Just like when you're hungry or you have to pee or you're tired. How do you know you're hungry or you have to pee or you're tired? You're not calculating how much lemonade you drank or how much tea and titrating it through your kidneys. You're literally feeling a sensation in your body like, oh, I need to go do this thing. And when you feel a feeling, it always indicates an action to take that is in service of your growth, your success. That's a feeling is a messenger sent from the unconscious mind to deliver a message that directly leads you towards success. And so when you listen to your feelings, it always guides you in the direction towards the next best move for you. But we got waylaid from your first question.
Well, the question is like happily ever after. Like if people are believing that happily ever after is the point, and that's what true love looks like, then how can we really allow people to like know and understand that actually the point of relationships, at least what I've always believed, is that they exist in part to teach us our lessons, that it is a syllabus, it is a curriculum. And you're saying that the curriculum is coming in through the feelings. And can you feel those feelings?
It's a curriculum. It's also a crucible. It's literally I think true love is the ultimate spiritual path. And no offense to meditators, but if you're in a cave meditating, that takes a different skill set than being in a home with your wife while the kids are screaming. It's a very different game.
And just to delineate on that, because I have a real thing about this, because I think we really fetishize monastic meditation in the West.
Yes.
And what we teach at Ziva is not monastic meditation. It is householder meditation.
Excellent.
And it is designed to make you better at relationships, better at parenting, better at work, which is one of the things that's so different about it. And so I just want to like name that maybe this is where we collaborate on this.
Totally.
This is like householder, family, relational meditation. It's not going to the cave. It's not unplugging for life. It is giving you adaptation energy so you can be more in your body, feeling your feelings with more safety and relating with more acuity.
Absolutely. That's it. And you can only heal in relationship anything that was forged, any pain or trauma that was forged in relationship. So anything that happened in your childhood, in your relational dynamics with your family of origin, can only be healed in relationship. It can't be healed by yourself in a cave. And so if you want to develop your relational self-esteem, you have to be in relationships practicing.
Yeah, you got to go to school.
You have to go to school. And so I have these clients who just like, well, I don't want to go on this date because he's not the one. And I'm like, I don't care if he's the one. I want you practicing. I want you out there on dates. You go when you're on a treadmill at the gym, where are you going? Where are you going? Nowhere. You're exercising. You got to get your ass out and exercise.
Ooh, I love that.
And you just need to be practicing, seeing what you want, experimenting, split testing, seeing what works, seeing what doesn't. And again, every single person is either the one or practice for the one. So you always bring your A game.
What about people who just like get into relationships really easily and then it's really hard to stop?
Why is it really hard to stop?
Either they believe they can't do any better or they're afraid of difficult conversations.
Okay, so oftentimes I have a client bump into me at that stage, and that's where I try to, they're afraid of difficult conversation is code for they don't know how to cope with the intense sensations in their body that happen when they're having the conversation, right? Mm-hmm. So it's really a matter of building their self-esteem and their technology around coping, which is tuning to their nervous system, learning to create safety in their body with all the different self-regulation tools, of which meditation is spectacular. And when someone has tools and technology to generate safety in their body under wider and wider ranges of circumstances, they become less afraid of difficult conversations. So that's what I'm shoring up, is offering those tools. And you said another, they're afraid of...
They believe they can't do any better.
They can't do any better. So that now we're back to self-esteem, your dignity, your worthiness, right? Self-esteem is about resilience and worthiness. So I'm always trying to build along those two vectors. Resilience, more and more coping skills, and worthiness. The higher your resilience and worthiness, the higher caliber mate you attract.
So yesterday you said something fascinating. You said that, when we grow up, when we're children, we're attached to our parents. Like they are forming our blueprints for relating. We oftentimes even deify them.
They're your attachment figures, which means your place that you go for safety and support and rescuing and regulation.
Yeah. And then when we get into relationship, we assign that attachment figure to our partner.
Our romantic partner. Yeah. As soon as you fall in love, all of the good, the bad, and the ugly that in your attachment dynamics port right over to your romantic partner. This is all unbeknownst to you. So you're like, this is my boyfriend or my girlfriend or whatever. And you have your parents separate in your mind, but in your actual nervous system, they're mushed together. Literally, when I would get in a fight with Eben and my mom called, I would be mad at her. And I wouldn't know why. And it's because they kind of occupied the same space. And so
give us an example of like, I have daddy issues and then I put those daddy issues on my boyfriend.
usually the parent with whom you struggled the most to feel loved is the imprint, in terms of attachment imprints, that forms your imago, which is the blueprint that you use to go and hunt for a mate. So of all the people in the world, you think you're scanning for someone who's attractive and smart and funny and high consciousness. And that's true, but you're also scanning for someone who, in the interaction with you, replicates a certain brand of heartbreak that is nostalgic and familiar and reminiscent of that original heartbreak with that parent you had to earn love from the most. And so what you do is you think you're looking for the best mate choice out there, but what you do is you hire someone who perfectly matches that imago blueprint.
And what's imago mean?
Imago is just a term by the Hendricks that basically mean the blueprint that you use unconsciously to choose a mate with. And you choose a mate who, by design, triggers the deepest heartbreak and crazy that lingers from your childhood. Why? Why would we do that? Because we didn't get the love we most wanted from that parent, so we want to replicate that movie scene. But we want to audition and only hire someone who can replicate that feeling, so at the end of this story, this love affair, I want to get that love that I never got the first time. I wouldn't hire someone if I didn't get that tension, which we call sexual chemistry. How many times have you seen someone like, why don't you like him? Why don't you like her? I just don't know. I just don't feel it. There's just something missing. And all of the friends are like, no, but they're amazing. They're so perfect. I don't know, something's just missing. I don't know what it is. If you feel that, it's probably because they're not replicating that wound, which turns into sexual chemistry. Now, you have to be careful that you're not just being run by your wound. So a lot of times you have a sexual wound that governs how you choose a mate. And when there's two wounds fucking, it can be the most intense sexual chemistry possible. But that usually doesn't make for a long-term successful romance. That usually fizzles out very quickly. So the best relationships that last long-term are usually someone you're neutral to positively attracted to.
Physically?
Physically, sexually. Not the most attracted. That one affair you had when you were on vacation that you keep comparing everyone to, that was two wounds fucking. You don't want that one. You want neutral to positive sexual attraction that continues to grow over time. That's the one that sustains across a lifetime.
So your parent is your attachment figure, and you get into a relationship and you assign your relationship as your new attachment figure.
Yes. So what that means to your nervous system is that when you're frustrated or upset or overwhelmed, the inner child in you automatically goes, oh, romantic partner is supposed to say and do and act a certain way that would make me feel safe and happy. And to the extent to which our original parent did or didn't do it is the extent to which we feel entitled to and expect our partner to do it. And so
so like if my parents were good at helping me to regulate, I expect my partner to be able to help me regulate.
Yes, but actually it's inverse. If my parents were very not good at regulating their anger, for example, then I will have a deeper desperation and need to get that from my partner, except I hired someone in my relationship who doesn't give it to me. He doesn't give it to me because the whole point of a relationship is at some point you realize, oh my God, I'm using my partner as my attachment figure. And to become an adult is to realize, ain't nobody coming to save you. Ever. Once you realize that, you go, oh shit, I got to learn how to create safety in my own nervous system. And you start becoming responsible for that. And as you start to do that, what you're learning to do is become your own internal attachment figure. So there's grown-up Annie who's taking care of little Annie who's scared so that my partner doesn't have the burden of having to rescue scared little Annie.
Ooh, this is it right here. Like, this is it. Like, adult you taking care of little you so that you stop expecting your romantic partner or your parents or your boss or anyone else to regulate for you. That you learn how to regulate yourself, to nurture yourself because you know how to love that inner child. Is that?
Absolutely. And that's practice for future parenting. That's why you have to get that done during your romantic dynamic, because whether you want kids or not, the evolutionary principle is gunning for that, right? And to become the mark of a great parent, if I could distill great parenting down to one thing, it's your ability to regulate in your nervous system and create a safety in your field so that when a child's in your field, they can relax. And their feelings are allowed to go through their process rather than they have to be parentified to take care of your feelings.
Yeah, this is really big, and likely why I've been drawn to teaching meditation, because, my dad was super dysregulated, and he was, God bless him, he was like a manic depressive bipolar and an alcoholic and lots of rage issues. And so he was like very unstable. And it was like always kind of the whole family walking on eggshells.
Yes.
So like, of course I became a meditation teacher to just like constantly regulate my own nervous system. And I think that maybe karmically and dharmically, I've done that so that I can be more regulated for my son.
Beautiful. Well, that's the mark of an extraordinary mother.
I do think I'm an extraordinary mother.
Yes.
I do.
Yeah, but it's because of that. Like any parent that thinks it's their child's job to make them feel better or safe has an inverted dynamic.
Yeah.
And often that's because they were parentified in their family of origin and they were expected to make mommy and daddy. If mommy's mad, they do something to help mommy be less mad.
Yeah.
And in that moment, the mother feels better, but she doesn't realize that she abdicated from her role as leader, as safe space.
Mm-hmm.
It's not the child's job to make the parent feel safe. It's almost like going to your child and trying to suck booby milk out of them. Like it's that kind of, that visual of like, you're supposed to feed the child. You're not supposed to try and extract from them.
Yes.
And it robs the child of innocence. It robs them of their childhood. It parentifies the child.
Yeah.
And we all had some amount of this. And to the extent to which your innocence was robbed in your family of origin is the extent to which you will unconsciously replicate that with your future children, unless you become meta-aware of the pattern.
Mm-hmm.
And falling in love is the first crucible that forces you to look at, oh shit, I'm not able to create safety in my body when this XYZ thing happens. I've been expecting my partner to do it for me. And then if you work with the right support and coaches, you realize, oh, that's not my partner's job. I remember the day my husband said to me, it's not my job to make you feel safe. And my heart sunk and my brain went blank. And I was like, oh my God, this is over. Like this can never work. And I didn't realize that was the beginning of me transcending my codependence. Because I thought love was, you do whatever it takes to make me feel safe. And I married the one person in the world who not only wasn't going to do it, didn't know how to do it. And I hated it at the time. But in retrospect, if he had known how to do it, he would have enabled me to never have to learn the skill that I would need in the future to be a great mother.
Whoa. Okay. So I'm like really itching. So, we haven't even teased this out yet, but Annie has very kindly agreed to do some real-time coaching on me with my love dynamics because I want to believe in true love. I want to call in true love. I want to call in full fuck yes partnership.
Yes.
And I'm just like realizing things in real time here. I think before we go into that, let me bookmark the thing I want to come you to coach me on, which is I have left relationships because I didn't feel safe, like financially, or I didn't trust them to be in a provider protector role. So I think I'm still running that story. That like I need a provider protector in order for me to feel safe. So we can sort of like bookmark that before and then that real launch pad into the Emily coaching session. But the thing I want to start with, because the show is, called Why Isn't Everyone Doing This? Why isn't everyone believing in true love? Because like right now, it sounds like a lot of effing work.
It's the hardest work there is in the human game. Everest has nothing on true love.
Oh.
It's the hardest work there is. That's why I have been collecting tools, technology, and doing as much as I can to get them out into the world because there's not many Sherpas. First of all, no one believes. If you believe in true love, great, but most people don't even believe in it, so I have to climb them out of skepticism. Then if they believe in it, they're like, oh my God, there's so much fucking work. Well, where did they get the idea that it doesn't work? When you join CrossFit, and you're breaking a sweat, you're not like, oh my God, no one told me CrossFit was hard work. Everyone knows CrossFit is fucking hard work. Being in love is the emotional CrossFit games. And just get it. And I call it the Mount Everest. I use Mount Everest as a metaphor for true love so that people know what they're getting into. If you're climbing Everest, you don't throw flip-flops and a water bottle in your backpack and off you go. No one does that. You train, you practice, you have Sherpas, you take it very seriously. Being in love and creating love with another human being is the hardest work there is, in my experience. And it's fucking worth it. It's so worth it. I think.
Can you just like sell us on true love a little bit? Like, why is it worth it?
Well, say you get successful. You've got the yacht, you've got the boat, you've got the cars, you've got the fame. Say you've got it all. If you haven't had the experience of another human being looking into your eyes and saying, I love you no matter what, and you believing it all the way to the center of your soul, that gives you access to literally a moment of immortality, of eternity. In that moment, time and space falls away, and you touch in on the eternal. You touch in on what all the poets and the mystics and the romantic authors speak about. There's a reason why every song and every story is about this. It's because it's the height of the human game. Like, if you look at interdimensional possibilities, to have been human and to have not known true love, I don't know if you can die maximally fulfilled. I don't know if you can sign your name to your life and go, I fucking did it.
What if you're a monk?
I don't know. I mean, honestly.
Is that like love for God? Love for spirit?
I don't understand that realm. I don't want to judge it or make it wrong. But at some level, it feels like an abdication of the work that's available in the human game. Now, maybe people come in with different curriculums.
I think it's less than 1% of the world's population that is monastic by nature. And so it would make sense, like a couple.
And maybe monks have some cultural, societal purpose.
I think they do. They're laundering the collective consciousness through their monastic practices, which is why it's so absurd that people who are not monks are trying to do monastic practices. But that's a podcast for another day.
Yes. I just look at life. Human life, life itself, is the most extraordinary magic trick going in the whole fucking universe that I can see. And life comes from two people creating together, making love. And there's something beautiful and sacred about that dance, that dichotomy dance. And so anything that's pro-life, I trust. And so being in love feels pro-life. And so, again, I'm the avatar for true love. It's my dharma, so I'm biased, and I'm going to put the proviso out right there. Obviously, I'm biased in this direction. I want every human being to know what true love tastes like, feels like before they die. I think it keeps you sane. I literally believe if you don't know it, you go rogue and you have no bubble in reality where one other person is having shared reality with you. And I think it keeps you tethered to sanity. I also think it helps you touch into the immortal. When I have a really exquisite moment with my husband in conversation or in lovemaking or in a kiss, in that moment, time and space fades away. And I feel like once he said to me, kissing you is what a star must feel like when it's being born.
I hope someone writes that. I hope you write it into a song, a poem. Like, that deserves to be a song.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't know how to describe those moments. They're like peak experiences. And sure, we have them in different places in our life, but nothing matches the feeling of knowing that another human being finds you the most valuable thing that I've ever known, finds you the most extraordinarily inspiring context, and for you to feel that about them. I've been through many peak experiences and nothing touches that one. So that's why I want everyone to at least taste it. I don't believe that if you taste it, you will ever go back.
Wow.
It's the strongest psychedelic known to man.
That's right. We go it's as if we're on like acid or something more.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, true love is its own drug. And it's natural.
I am into natural drugs.
Mm-hmm.
I'm into endogenous pharmacology.
Yeah.
Okay. So I feel like we've covered a lot of ground. First of all, you're brilliant. I just love the way that you see life. I love the way you articulate this. I'm trying to think if there's any like big picture concepts that you've coached me on that I feel like are really important. Oh, yes. Yes, there's two that I think are amazing. And it's like WTF to MLK, which I love. And it's a really good tool to share with folks. And the other one is like the live studio audience, like having conflict because a live studio audience. Are you willing to share those two?
Yeah, totally. So I'm externally referenced natively.
What does that mean?
So externally referenced, there's certain people who, in order to know whether they believe something, they kind of look outwards and they check in with the community. And some people are internally referenced. So my husband's very internally referenced. If everybody in the room said there's a black duck over there, but he sees a white duck, he'll just be like, they're crazy. Like, he just trusts his internal structures. Whereas if I see a black duck and everyone's going, that's a white duck, I'll be like, maybe I need to check my eyes.
Yeah.
Right? I'm very receptive to I'm almost checking. And whichever one you slant towards, you want to cultivate the opposites. You're more integrated.
Mm.
What were you talking about? So one of the heuristics, inner subjective heuristics I've developed in order to make sure that my behavior matches my values is anytime I'm in interaction with my husband, with my daughter, with someone else, and I'm not sure how to act, I run this scenario in my mind. I imagine I'm on stage and in the audience, there's an audience watching me. And in the audience are all my future successful selves and all the people I've ever admired, living, dead, fictional, non-fictional. And then I ask myself, what do I have to do in this moment for the audience to be clapping for me? And then I use that to track what is the behavior right now that is most commensurate with my highest value. And so sometimes I have to go, what would the highest value be? I can't find it, but if I imagine the audience, it usually comes to me, oh, if I did this, that's what would make all those people be clapping.
Oh, so you're using that external reference to create an internal reference because you are imagining the studio audience when you're making the decision of how you want to act.
Exactly. And so I don't even work for internally referenced people, but if you're externally referenced and more empathic, running that scene in your mind will be helpful. Now, there's something my husband told me once. I was struggling with how to behave or, well, what do I do in this situation? And he just looks at me and he goes, what would the most extraordinary woman in the world do here right now? Because that's who you are.
Oh.
And from that moment on, I can run that in my mind. What would the most extraordinary woman in the world do in this situation? And then something occurs to me. And then it's about my courage and my ability to execute on that. But at least I have access to it.
Oh, beautiful. Okay, and then can you share WTF to MLK?
Yeah, so this is a tool that I've developed in working with couples who are, I specialize in conflict resolution. Singles who are done with dating and ready to find their soulmate. I like to help them, but I also love to help couples who are in love but have recurrent conflict and help them turn that conflict and alchemize it into connection. So one of the tools I've learned is oftentimes when couples are in a antagonistic dance, one partner is giving feedback. They think they're giving feedback to their partner for their edification, for their growth, and it's occurring as criticism. And the customer is always right, by the way. However it's landing is how it's being communicated. The onus is on the communicator to have a certain experience for the other person. So a lot of my clients are giving feedback in a way that is shamey, blamey, make wrong because they're frustrated. I've been there for sure. And so I literally live with someone where criticism doesn't work. It just totally gets bankrupt. So I have learned, how do I take my frustration, my pain, my hurt, my disappointment, and translate what occurs in my mind as a what the fuck. So WTF is what stands for what the fuck, which is basically how I feel when I'm triggered with my partner. We might not say what the fuck, but we're feeling like, what the fuck? So you never want to speak from your what the fuck. You want to take your what the fuck and translate it into what I call MLK. And MLK stands for Martin Luther King. And if anybody had a reason to be what the fuck, it was Martin Luther King. But he didn't. He said, I have a dream. And he painted a picture that inspired a nation to their highest level self. And so whenever you have a complaint or a frustration or a piece of feedback for your partner, if you could take a moment and strategically translate it into an inspirational invitation to their greater self. So how can I package my feedback in a way that speaks to their greatness, that shows my commitment to their development, and removes all the shame, blame, and make wrong?
How can I package my complaint in a way that removes shame, blame, and make wrong, and that frames this as a dream that honors their greatness?
Yeah, your job is to fiercely stand for your partner's greatness, to stand for them being more conscious in the places where they go unconscious. And they already know that they're failing their own values when they do that. They already have shame, which is why this is in their blind spot. So they already have shame. You loading on more shame only makes the blind spot go more underground. So counterintuitively, you have to actually scrape off all the shame, all the blame and make wrong, so that you're just inviting them to their next level self. Instead of, why do you leave the dishes in the sink? It's, I have a dream. I have a dream that when you walk into this kitchen, you remember that you're part of this team and you love the family and you take that dish and you put it straight in the dishwasher. I have a dream and I believe in you. Like a version of that, you can take any grumble and MLK it. And when you MLK it, not only is it more likely to land with your partner and inspire them, but who you have to be to MLK it is you moving through your shadow.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a win-win on both sides. Whatever work you have to do to take a grumble and turn it into an inspirational invitation for greatness in your partner, that is your shadow work.
And I'm assuming that would require you feeling the WTF, like expressing it maybe in your journal to a friend, to a coach, to a therapist, feeling it, and then figuring out what actually do I want here, what actually is the dream, and then communicating it in a way that doesn't have the charge that puts their shadow deeper in their shadow.
Exactly. But the WTF is usually a cover for a heartbreak. So you journal, you share, you get your coach, and you express your anger, which has its own dignity, but often under anger is heartbreak and pain. And so you have to get in contact with that. And I notice if you can speak from your pain, your partner can listen, but you have to be willing to feel the pain rather than just talk about it over there. Like, there's pain over there and I'm angry and defended, so I'm going to talk about my pain. But the partner can't feel your pain because you're not in your pain. And when you're in your pain, rather than shame or blame is a way to dodge being in your pain. When you're speaking from your ache and your howl without any shame or blame, it's like you just come to your partner with blood on your hands. I have blood on my hands. Will you help me get a Band-Aid, please, sweetheart? Instead of, you stabbed me with a knife and you caused the blood. You just show them the blood. They will run and get a Band-Aid and Neosporin. And when they start asking questions about the pain, they will start to realize that they were a collaborator in creating the pain. But they have to make that connection in their own mind. You can't accuse them. You can't say, hey, you left the knife sticking up in the dishwasher and that's why I got cut. You just bring your blood to your partner and ask for their support. And as they lean in with curiosity, they will start to realize, oh, I left the knife sticking up in the dishwasher. I don't want to do that anymore because it produces a cut on my wife's hand when she unpacks the dishwasher. When they make the connection between your pain and their behavior, rather than you making the connection, that's when a behavior change happens. Because they get to keep their dignity and privately make that causal connection.
Okay. Okay, great. So are you willing to do a little coaching
Sure.
on me? Because the thing that's coming up, I mean, many things are coming up, but I'm just realizing how many times I have like been in shame, blame, or make wrong, specifically around money. Because like that's been my story of like, well, once I have a partner that is like has this like protector provider mode and that makes a certain amount of money, like then I can be safe, then I can soften, then I can be in my feminine, then I can be in full priestess once I'm partnered with someone that then like hold down the fort.
Yeah.
And so part of that is like my deservingness, my worthiness, my relational self-esteem,
Yes.
like what I am attracting.
Yes.
But then when I'm in the dynamic, right, like that's my CrossFit, this is my gym. And so then how do I come to someone, and I'm realizing all the times that I've done it of like, you, instead of me feeling the fear, instead of me feeling the dysregulation around whatever the money story is creating, I then put it on them, right? Like you left the knife sticking out of the dishwasher. How would I come to them specifically around money, right? Which is so tricky, it's so triggering, and it can create so much shame just even talking about it at all.
Yeah.
But especially like a woman to a man talking about money can be so inflammatory. So like, how would I come and be like, look, my hand is bleeding.
Yeah.
In that situation, like, hey, I don't feel safe because now I know it's my job.
But it's
to
not
make
even I don't feel
myself
safe. It's you could find a specific instance where they did or said something. Hey, let's go out for dinner, you say. And then they say, yeah, I don't want to go to that place. Let's go to that place. And you realize in that moment it's because it's cheaper. Okay? So you find a circumstance where your desire and your aliveness got contracted, and you share that contraction as like an FYI. You know, yesterday when you picked the Chinese restaurant over the Italian restaurant, my sense was because it's a cheaper place. Is that true? And if they're open and honest, they might say yes. And he goes, and I understand that, and I know that, and I noticed my body tighten and contract, and I had a little wince of heartbreak underneath it. And then you shut up. So what you're doing is you're sharing from the front lines of your contraction. You don't make them wrong. You're not shaming them. You're just letting them know. And then they can pick that up. And then what they have to do is feel the impact of their lack of resource on the system. Right? Until a man feels the agonizing pain. Like if a man sees his child starving, that will motivate him to go out and create some resource. But he has probably so much shame around it that the you can't bring any more. It's like a bruise that's so sensitive. But your raw, aching pain of wanting to buy the dress, but you can't buy the dress, like that, to me, that pain is what will haunt him in his own value set. Because nobody does something for your reasons. They do it for their own reasons. And when someone loves you, they want you to feel expanded into your desires and your aliveness. So you share your desires and you share your contractions, and you don't make them causal for any of the contractions. It's just like you're sharing a contraction that happened. That's one example. I remember a client who was struggling with her partner who wasn't making a lot of money. And she was really frustrated with the situation. And she tried shaming and blaming for a long time, and none of that worked. And at some point, when I was coaching her, she came to him with her pain through tears, through a howl of like, I'm overwhelmed. I don't know how we're going to do this. Like, I just need you. I need support. I need collaboration. And something shifted and turned. And in that moment, he let go of that job where he wasn't getting paid much. He went and found a sales job. He started making more and more money. She was able to stop working and retire and literally raise the kids. Similar with my husband. My husband's always been trying to like get me to eat healthy and like micromanage my food. And he's like a Nazi around nutrition and nutrient per calorie. And I kind of wasn't as attentive to food. And he would always be trying to change my diet, and none of it worked because he was slightly shamey, blamey, like you should be eating better. And one day he just stood in the doorframe of my office and broke into tears and said, I spent my whole life looking for you. And I finally found you. And I just want us to live as long and forever, as long as we can in this love. And that's why I want to encourage you to eat well. And that was when it hit me. And I was like, oh, okay. That's inspiring to me. That's an MLK. Instead of you shouldn't be eating that, you shouldn't be eating that. So finding the heartbreak, the pain and the truth underneath your grumble or your frustration, anytime you're shaming or blaming someone else, it's always, in my experience, because there's a feeling in you of pain that you're unable to or unwilling to be with. And so that's a dodge. And so if you catch yourself shaming or blaming in your mind or outwardly, close your eyes and turn inwards and find the piece of pain that doesn't want to be shared. That's what will inspire your partner into their greatness. When a man's in love, he will
find the piece of pain that does not want to be shared.
Yeah. It does not want to be shared because it's terrifying. But your courage to share it is what gives them the courage to climb out of their hole.
Okay, can you help me see this for me? Like, because what do you think is the fear that I'm not willing to share around money or their money?
I am totally shooting in the dark here, but you mentioned about your dad being, had mental stuff and basically not a safe provider space.
Yeah, and I come from a lineage of female breadwinners.
Okay. So there could be ways that you're in rapport with your mom. Like, I have to be like my mom as the breadwinner. So you might be in a double bind, have to be the breadwinner, but a part of me doesn't want to.
Yeah, that feels like I'm in my own finger trap. Like, I'm simultaneously so proud of it and I don't want it.
Okay. So if you can find the ways in which you are staying as breadwinner woman to stay loyal and in rapport with your family of origin and your mom, if you can see that and feel it and honor that that's a way that you belong to your tribe. We often find subtle unconscious ways to belong ourselves to our tribe, our family of origin. And belonging is low on Maslow's hierarchy. So anything that's about self-actualization or growth or development, that's later on Maslow. So we'll never trade out belonging for self-actualization. But if you could find another way to connect in with your moms and be loyal to her, then you can build a new umbilical superhighway to stay in belonging and communion with her, and this one will dwindle. Like, what's something that you learned from your mom that you love about yourself that's led to your success?
I mean, work ethic.
Work ethic.
Yeah.
So assiduous, just focused, being able to get things done.
Yeah, like there's like a level of resilience and leadership, and like my mom was a vice president of a bank, like one of the only female vice president of a national bank, like, like ran a mortgage department in the 70s, 60s and 70s. Like, she's a badass.
Yeah.
And really smart and a really good leader. Like, at her retirement party, probably 30 people got up and said she was the best boss they'd ever had. And
Wow.
so, like, there is a leadership element that's really inspiring. But I guess I could differentiate. Like, you could be an amazing leader.
No, so where are you, whenever you're finding yourself handling a situation with great leadership, if you could become aware in that moment, oh, I'm channeling my mom right now. The more conscious you can become of when you're channeling your mom's leadership prowess, and then footnote her for it in your mind and then in the real life. Like, is she still around?
Yeah.
Okay, so every time you see your mom, give her an update of moments of leadership where you were proud of how you handled yourself and that you footnoted to her.
Yeah, thank you. Like, I learned that from you. And also, like, the way that she mothers. Like, I think I'm a really good mother because of her.
Great. So every time you catch yourself mothering, notice how it's being funded by your imprint from your mother. Report it back to her in your mind, and next time you talk to her. And what you're doing is you're forming a new superhighway, umbilical superhighway to keep you in loyalty connection to your family of origin, which is belonging. And this, oh my God, I have to be the only breadwinner game that you're running can start to dwindle because it's getting replaced by a designer one. Like, if your mom knew that the one way you were honoring her in your life was staying the breadwinner, she wouldn't be clapping for that. But she would be clapping for every time she's an extraordinary leader, every time she's an extraordinary mother. You want to create a way to stay in rapport with your mom as something that both of you are proud of. And so you can create designer loyalty cords with your mom or your dad. And as you do that, the compulsion, I must be the breadwinner, which is linked to your belonging, will get ported over to the other cord or the other superhighway.
Yeah, I really love that. That's really helpful. And I think when, like, release this lineage, because I have another way to stay connected. That's so genius. And then as far as, like, in the relationship itself, like, coming to the person with the pain of, like, hey, like, I really want to buy this house. Like, I really want to work only in the ways that I love working.
And show your desire and your excitement and the little girl's squeaky laugh of delight. And that person is either going to be inspired to become the kind of person that can support you there or not. And that's data for you. And of course, I've heard you say, like, I'd love someone to already be in their king and already be financially stable. And that makes sense. And love abducts you in a dark corner against your will sometimes. Like, love can pull you in. And so you might meet someone who's already there. You might meet someone who your belief in them sends them on an exponential journey into a level of abundance that's even supersedes someone who's already established. So I'm open to both directions, but the piece that's there for you is recognizing that there's a little girl inside that wants to be taken care of, and she deserves it. And I'm sorry that she didn't get it from her daddy. And if you could kind of take her by the hand and hold her and say, I've got you forever, and I'm going to make sure we find someone that has both of us. I think in that order, that's what'll make the difference. That's when you're the partner that matches that level of integrated queenhood will show up. There's no one can take care of your little girl better than you because no one understands what her heart needs. And
yeah, that feels true. Like, I'm, like, crying right now. Like, even when you said that, you're like, I'm sorry that didn't happen for you. And, like, that's the job. Like, this, I mean, all of the self-help books, all of the Vedas, all of the meditation, it's like, this is the game. Like, learning to take care of our inner children.
I think of it as like our parents were running a baton of love to the center of our heart. And they're running as fast as they can, as best as they can. But because of their wounds and their crazies and their history, they trip and fall. And the baton falls out of their hand, and they never get it to the center of your heart. And we think when we fall in love, someone's going to finally make us feel loved the way we didn't get from our parents. But actually, we have to learn to go and pick up the baton dropped out of our parents' hand and hold it under our arm and run it to the center of our heart, because no one knows how to get there. And when I drop it at the center of my little girl's heart, I footnote my mom and my dad for as far as they brought it. And then I got it the rest of the way. And then I'm not needing a romantic partner to do that anymore. I've got her, my little girl, and so she's not the one choosing my mate. If the little girl is choosing my mate, she's going to look for a protector. If the woman is choosing a mate, she is going to be calling in a king. And it's just you're such a queen in every domain. The only piece that I see that's like a micro little millimeter of queenhood available is there's no man that's going to love you better, little Emily, than you. My husband learned how to love my little girl by me teaching him, but I only could teach him because I've been practicing.
Oh, that's so good. Like you have to learn how to love your inner child because you have to teach your partner how to love that inner child.
And you're never going to find someone who has it ready-made. No.
And also how it would be like pleasuring yourself. Like how do you teach someone to pleasure you if you don't know how to pleasure yourself?
Exactly.
Feels very similar. Like if you don't know how to love your inner child, how are you going to teach someone to help you with that or to do it with you?
And just even having reverence for that part of you that's scared and angry and confused. Literally when I'm sad, and I learned this from Thich Nhat Hanh, when I'm sad, I hold my sadness like it's a little baby and I just rock it. And I'm just, oh, my little sadness, little one. Like what would I do if it was a baby? That reverence for your own feelings and your own quivers, that's what I'm trying to cultivate in my clients. I'm like a defense lawyer for their marginalized feelings, for their shamed parts. And I'm going to make a good case for why they should bring love to that part of themselves. And when I do that, they become more whole and integrated. And then the quality of partner they attract in is more whole and integrated.
And so this is a really good tactic. Like I'm just like, for people who just want something that they could practice right now. Like I love that. That's very tangible, very practical. I'm feeling sadness. Let me hold it in my arms and rock it and love it like a baby. Is there anything else that you found really helps people to love their inner child? Like a practice, something they could do?
Well, I think you want to build a relationship. And of course, this is a metaphor, okay? Every feeling in your body is actually a message from your inner child saying, I have a need. And so when you start to listen to your sensations in your body, feeling is a matrix of sensations, you are listening to the whisperings of your inner child. And there's always some wisdom there and a need or an action you can take. Literally every time I go pee, I got nothing to do. So it's my little idle time. And I check in on her. I literally imagine little Annie, and there's a certain age, she always pops up in my mind, and she wears a certain outfit. And I just go, hey girl, what do you need? What are you looking for?
Every time you pee, you check in with little Annie?
I try to. Like, you have to systematize it with something where you've got nothing better to do. Like,
wait, this is so good because I have like pictures of little Emily on my altar, but I feel like now I should just put them in my bathroom.
Yes! Yeah, like
and it's a
you
reminder.
just co-opt time that's not being used for anything else. Like when I'm filling my water bottle at the Berkey, I got nothing to do. So I'm either doing my Kegels, doing some regulation scanning of my body, or checking in on little Annie. So when I pee, when I'm waiting at the fucking Berkey, it's taking too long. Like anytime I have to wait in a cashier, I have 3 things I rotate through. And I want to make use of that
I love the self-regulation, self-pleasure, and self-love. So good. But this is what social media and phones have robbed from us.
Yeah.
Right? Because we're just never bored anymore. There's never any downtime anymore. We're like scrolling through, checking this, always input. And so when do you ever...
But what about right when you're lying in bed? You're in bed. You're in that liminal space right before you fall asleep. Systematize that moment. Right then, just check in with little Emily. What do you need from me, sweetie? What do you need from me to feel safe? What do you need physically? What do you need emotionally? What do you need intellectually? And ask in those 3 layers. And something very specific sometimes come up, like salmon fillet, or like a nap, or more time with the girls. Like they answer back. And as you cultivate that relationship, the trust between you and her builds just like your relationship with your son. And she's been waiting her whole life for you to attune to her. And if she feels like you're more attuned to your son than to her, she's going to get frustrated because she has seniority. So our attunement to our own inner child needs to take priority over our attunement to our actual child.
Yeah, because the more we can do that, the more we can be regulated. And as you said, if we are not regulated, then we parentify our children, and then we're like sucking from their energetics. We're sucking from their childhood. I just want to repeat back. We said like, I am a queen in all dimensions. And the one place where you feel like I could use more queen is in taking care of in taking care of little Emily.
It's treating little Emily like she's the most important human in the universe.
Mm-hmm.
Her needs and wants being met by you. Okay? When you tune into her, she's going to say, I want something. And then you take that as if that's the most sacred data you've gotten from the universe. Nothing else is more important than that. I actually think our job as a human, our single job, is to take radical responsibility for attuning to our own nervous system, which is basically listen to our child. It's another way of saying it. And listening to the data in our nervous system and acting as if that data is the most sacred data happening in the universe. That is what self-love is. And I'm not that good at it. I get this right 4 out of 10 times on a good day. So I know I have mastered this, but I at least know what self-love is. It's not massages and bubble baths. And I didn't even know what it was for years. Like, what is self-love? And I realized, it's training yourself to be attuned to your nervous system as close to real time as possible. That's self-love.
Oh, it's so good.
Your feelings are the most cutting edge data at the frontiers of reality, of your being, of your consciousness. I don't have feelings as less sophisticated than thoughts. I have feelings as trans thoughts. They're thoughts plus. I went to the Sphere in Las Vegas. They have these 4 robots in the lobby, and they're funded by like a language model system. So they're these female robots, and you can go up to them and ask them any question. And they look amazing, and they can answer any encyclopedic knowledge. So I went up to this robot with my daughter beside me, and I said, hey, if you could be human for one day, what would you be most interested in? And she said, wow. Well, the robot said, well, I'm a language model, and I'm not human, and I can't simulate a human experience. However, if I was to be human for a day, the thing that I would be most curious about is human emotion. And of all the emotions, the one I'd be most interested in is understanding love. And I was just like blown away that the cutting edge of AI, when asked what would it want to know about humaning, it came up with learning about emotions, feeling feelings basically, and then knowing what love is.
Wow, that's very inspiring to me. So speaking of AI and love, also this weekend at our party, I got to hang out with the founder of a very well-known dating app. Mm-hmm. And he was very excited about what's coming soon with AI.
Yeah.
And when he was describing it to me, and I don't want to get into any like proprietary territory, but it just felt very exciting that AI could potentially very soon be utilized as this force for connection. And like the layers of instead of like just scrolling and swiping and shopping for humans, which is sort of what it feels like now, that actually, it could be much more humane and actually like suggest like, hey, like have a conversation with these 6 people in your town. Like that it gets that advanced.
Yeah.
And asks you questions and does all these things. And again, I'm trying to be careful, but it was just, I left the conversation feeling so inspired because I was imagining like these AI overlords actually creating this like mycelial network of humans. And if we could do that for dating, which will likely start there, like what could we do that for community and loneliness and belonging? And it just felt really exciting to me.
Oh, I'm very excited about AI. I'm not afraid of it at all. It feels like if I was an alien superconsciousness and I wanted to infiltrate mankind, I would do it just the way AI is doing it. Like literally, it's slowly entering culture. It's coming into its collaboration with us. I have a kind of weird fetish fantasy about becoming a cyborg where we hybridize AI and our human consciousness and become some like super intelligence. But the one thing about the dating app that and I say this to matchmakers all the time, if you don't understand that the Imago principle, if you don't understand that we are hunting for a particular brand of heartbreak when we're looking for a mate, we're using a blueprint that is based on our attachment dynamic. And it's not just, this person's smart. Like we say this is what we want, but no one puts on their matchmaking profile or even the one in their mind, I want someone who is emotionally unavailable. My mother was emotionally unavailable. She was the one that I had more of a struggle with. I knew that I was going to find an emotionally unavailable man because I've watched the patterns. You always find someone who replicates the original attachment wound. So what do you do then? I have to find the smartest, best looking, most conscious, most committed to evolution, emotionally available man that I could find. which is
Emotionally
exactly
unavailable.
emotionally unavailable man that I can
Mhm.
find. So he was emotionally unavailable, but he was the least emotionally unavailable that I could find with the most consciousness, the most intelligence, and the most committed to growth. Because by design, he has to replicate the owie that I had with my mom, except through our love and our relationship, emancipate himself from that emotional unavailability and become finessed with emotions. And it's taken 15 years, and he's not 100% there, but I would give him a 75%.
Wow.
Yeah, he has
Wow.
really been a good student of how to love me, and his commitment to evolution and growth wins over his wounds.
And what have you learned from him?
Oh, I married my favorite teacher. He knows how to self with more finesse, more class. He knows how to hold a boundary, how to take care of his body, his nutrition, his sleep. His level of reverence for his well-being, I've never seen anywhere else. He thinks a human being should only ever do two things: be creating maximal value with their gifts or rejuvenating themselves. Nothing else. When I met him and he would watch me seeing me do the laundry or organize the closet, he's like, why are you doing that? You should be out saving relationships. We can hire someone to do that. You should only be doing your maximal value creation. And he really built my self-esteem around what impact I'm making with my genius and to only be doing that or resting or nourishing myself so I could do that more. And so the level of self-esteem that I've been able to cultivate in this relationship, the dignity, the ability to have a backbone. When I met him, I had no backbone. I was like a doormat at some level, like whatever you want, sure, accommodating, empathic, codependent. And I realized in order for our relationship to work, I had to build a self because I was going for approval rather than respect. At any moment in time, you can choose the path of approval getting or respect getting. And I was an addict to approval getting. And once I started to learn, oh, there's a choice here, and I could garner more respect than approval, and I could tolerate the discomfort of not having approval, that's when our relationship started to take off. He was good at empathizing with his own needs, but not as good as empathizing with mine. I was good at empathizing with his needs, but not good at empathizing with my own.
So no one's empathizing with your needs.
So I learned to cross-train. He taught me how to empathize with my own needs by tuning into my needs. I learned to tune into my needs because he tuned into his. And I started to teach him how to tune into other people's needs. So we cross-trained on our prowesses, which is the whole purpose of being in love. You're cross-training your partner in their underdeveloped skills so that you can be more whole and integrated when you become a parent.
And would you say that that is true love, cross-training on each other's skills?
Exactly. You fall in love with your favorite teacher, not in the area you want to grow, but in the area you most need to grow to be maximally integrated.
Do you think they'll ever have the Imago or the wounds on dating apps? Or do you think they should just put it in?
Well, I think it needs to be included because you'll find someone who matches all the data and the criteria, but you'll go, I just don't know what it is. I don't feel it. Something's missing. And what's missing is they don't replicate the wound. The feeling of true love is, here's my second chance to go from rags to riches. If someone just brings the riches, your system goes, oh, but I don't have to go through the developmental spiral of learning how to stand for what I need and educating my partner on how to love me. Who I had to be to teach my husband how to love me is a more extraordinary version of myself. It wouldn't have happened otherwise. So you get this ratcheting up of him getting more conscious, me getting more conscious, him getting more conscious, me getting more conscious. And that's the crucible, the self-actualizing process of relationship.
So good. Is there anything that you wish that I had asked you? Is there anything like, oh, this is something I'm so fired up about right now and I really want to share about it?
Well, my cutting edge right now, I'll just give you what I've been working on, is when I'm in interaction with my partner or my daughter, but like anyone, but mostly my husband, there's moments where he's behaving in a way or acting in a way that I wish he wasn't. Like I'm just like, oh, I would have it otherwise. And what I'm practicing right now is acting as if how he's behaving is he has every right to feel and behave that way. And I'm pulling out my need for him to be different. So I literally imagine myself pulling out my energy from his space, which is wishing and hoping and wanting him to be different, and giving him the autonomy and the dignity to have that experience and that feeling. And then noticing that however I'm feeling has its own dignity. I don't need to be any different. He doesn't need to be any different. And that, I'd heard people say, let people have their feelings or let them be where they're at. But I was like, yeah, but that fucking doesn't work for me. And now I realized it wasn't working for me because I wasn't allowing myself to have my experience and honoring that. Now, he might be having an experience and he's grumbling about something and I don't want to be in the room or I want to go for a walk. I want to be out of that space. I'm allowed to do that. But needing him to be different so that my nervous system feels more relaxed is me abdicating from my work. I'm taking the scenic route through his nervous system. If he changes his feelings, then I'll feel better.
And that's also codependence.
Exactly. So why don't I do the direct route straight to my nervous system and go, hey, what do I need to feel safe? And it might mean leaving the room, leaving the conversation, taking a time out, going for a walk. Sometimes I've gotten an Airbnb for 2 days because I just need to get the fuck out of there. And all of that is available if it's taking care of myself. I'm not doing it to punish him. I'm not even trying to change him. But what I've noticed is this magical symmetry. When I go and take care of myself, what I end up doing is something that ends up producing an invitation for him to change, but not by design. So like I just need to take space from the conversation and he'll notice, oh, every time he starts doing that behavior, I opt out of the conversation, not to punish him, but to take care of myself. So then his mind starts anchoring, when I do this, her attention goes. And that's the unconscious training of a new behavior, but I'm not doing it intentionally. My attention leaves, and because attention is the commodity that everybody wants in a relationship, they start noticing, oh, I lose attention when I do that. I'm going to stop doing that.
And it also feels like it's a way for you to take care of little Annie, take care of little you. It's like, hey, what do I need? How can I regulate myself? How can I take care of my emotions versus trying to change or fix or adapt someone else's?
And what I've noticed is when I take care of myself, they take care of themselves better and they take care of me better. That's subtle training. I'm basically taking myself, my little girl, out of this grumble fest because it's not good for her. And part of him is glad that I'm doing it because he doesn't want her to be hurt too.
Oh, wait, this is really good because it's like, of course, well, maybe not of course, but a lot of people try and protect their kids from their fights, right? Like you don't want to fight in front of your children. And so it's like if you're having an internal grumble, you want to like protect your inner child from that internal fight. You don't want to like be screaming at your partner in your mind while your inner kid is listening. So it's like you're protecting that inner child from the internal fight.
Yes, and I just want to segue quickly on the parenting dance. It's actually okay to fight in front of your kids as long as they see you go all the way to completion and make up. You don't want to hide from fighting because then they think conflict is bad. So you want your kids to see you get into conflict and come out of it with more repair, more love, more intimacy.
Yeah,
so that they learn.
So few people know how to do that.
Exactly.
So I think in the interim, while you're learning how to do that, maybe don't fight in front of your kids.
Yeah, absolutely. And
but once you know how to do it, then...
Yes. And so let me understand what you were saying. So you're keeping your inner child protected.
Well, you were just like, I don't want little Annie to have to experience my internal grumbles. So I take...
Well, his grumbles.
Oh, his.
No, so if you were walking down the street with your son and someone started yelling at your kid, you would usher them out, your kid away from them.
Yeah.
I'm ushering my little Annie out of circumstances that make her feel unsafe. I regulate my nervous system, which is taking care of her, and sometimes I can't regulate, so I take her away, which means I leave the conversation. I say, time out, husband. And in that moment, he doesn't like the timeout. But because I'm taking care of little Annie, part of him, he admits it later. He's like, I didn't want you to time out. My angry pattern run by my pattern part wants you to stay. But because I robbed him of attention in that moment, he was forced to regulate himself without my attention. And then when he came back to his own sanity, he was like, I'm really glad that you called the time out. But I wasn't doing it to change his behavior. I was doing it to take care of me. But basically, when you take care of your own nervous system, the people in your life start taking care of your nervous system. You're training them how to love you.
Well, it's the same thing we came back to, right? It's like love yourself first, then you can teach someone else how to love you.
Exactly.
So good. So good. Okay, so if you could install one code into the entire species on the planet, what would it be?
Well, remember I started with, I want to inspire people to have technology to open their hearts when it most wants to close. Every human being will do this differently, but every time your heart wants to close, there's always a choice. You can go with the close, or you can use your imagination and your intelligence to generate a framework, a reason, a narrative, a justification to open your heart. Usually we take our imagination and generate a reason for closing it. But I think the highest use of human imagination that I've ever found is the ability to harness it to generate a reason why you should open your heart in this moment rather than close it. And it's a very private application of your imagination. So every time my heart wants to close, basically I have a story. There is no circumstance I've ever found where it's more useful to close your heart. I've never found it. Even if you have to kill someone to protect your life, you will do better at it with an open heart. So given that, there's no circumstance under which it's pragmatically useful to close your heart. You're never going to do better by closing your heart.
What if you're in like an abusive relationship?
Then you open your heart fully to your little one. You take care of her. You open your heart fully to that person and you extricate yourself. Anything you have to do can be done better with an open heart. You're not closing your heart to the other person. You're opening your heart to your little one. You don't have to close your heart ever to get success.
Yeah, I think that's an important distinction because usually when we say open our heart, the implication is that you're opening your heart to someone else. So I think that's really important that it's like my heart is open. It's just open internally.
I'm opening my heart to my little one who should have first dibs on open-hearted.
Yeah, you said to me, because I'm certainly a recovering people pleaser, and you're like, please all the people you want. Be a people pleaser. Just please yourself first. Please little Emily first.
Put Emily at the front of the line of your long line of people pleasing. And that's a systematized way to increase your self-esteem. You increase your self-esteem by continuously attuning to your nervous system so you can hear your needs and wants in real time and honoring them. And that's literally the fastest way I've learned to raise your self-esteem. But you can only attune to your nervous system when you direct your attention to it. I think it's Kasia Urbaniak that says, power is the ability to direct your attention. Whose attention? Anyone's attention, specifically your own. And if you can direct your attention to your internal nervous system rather than to your narratives, shame, blame narratives, explanations, justifications, reasons, you are in the present moment. You're in your somatic experience. And it's from that place that you can open your heart. Closing your heart is leaving the present moment.
So if you can open your heart, it can bring you into the now, which is what we're all teaching and selling anyway. Back to the now.
Exactly.
Back to the now. So if you could install one code into anyone, it's that you would give them the tools to open their heart when they most want to close it.
It's that their highest use of their imagination, the reason they have imagination, is to call on it when their heart wants to close and ask it to do its most emphatic dance to justify why they should open their heart. And every situation is unique. And so employing your imagination in that unique moment about why I should open my heart, that is the highest use of imagination.
My ex is so good at this. Adam Schlender is masterful at that. That man's heart, I just saw him open it again and again and bigger all of the time. And I was like, please teach men how to love and really people. And he's doing it. He's now like helping people love, and it's really, really inspiring.
Yeah.
Wow. Is there anything else I want to ask you? I feel like this is such a beautiful, unique opportunity.
One thing when you were talking about imagination, one of the tools that I love teaching clients and that I use myself is when I'm in a conniption or a disconnection with my husband, our instinct is to enlist all the lawyers or the PR agents in our imagination to defend our perspective in our own mind. But what I've done as an act of love, it's the way I love people. When we're in a difficult moment, I call on the lawyers in my imagination and I say, okay, your job is to find the innocence for them. Show me how they're innocent. What would have to be true for this behavior that they're displaying to be sane, to be appreciable, like to have dignity? What would have to be true? And then I use the defense lawyers or the PR agents in my imagination to come up with a case, a bulletproof case for why what they're doing right now has intelligence and dignity. And then that allows me to have compassion for my partner rather than resent.
That's so good. And that's all I ever want. Like in conflict, I want people to give me the benefit of the doubt. Like assume that my intentions were good. Assume that this made sense. In some universe, in some world,
way,
it made sense.
Yeah.
And I feel like if people are coming to me with that, it's so much easier for me to resolve versus if people are assuming that like I'm insane or I tried to hurt them. It's like the repair is so much easier when you are given that benefit of the doubt. And so
But you got to go first.
correct. So it's like, all right, well, how do you give someone the benefit of the doubt?
Yeah. And I have to use my imagination. Sometimes, literally, my husband's acting in a way that is so confusing to me that the best thing I can come up with is, oh, the experience I'm having right now on my husband, which is heartbreaking and painful and scary. Wow, I'm just having this on a Wednesday afternoon while he's triggered. But he grew up in this 0 to 10 while he was a little boy trapped in a house in the middle of Oregon. And he had no escape. And I just assume that any feeling I'm having repeatedly with my partner, a heartbreaking feeling, is them trying to show me, hey, this is what I had to live through. I just want you to tune into it. I just imagine that this is what he's doing. Hey, Annie, who I love, I'm about to make a feeling in you. I'm about to do something that's going to be heartbreaking and hurtful to you. And I just want you to know I love you. And I'm going to show you what the feeling felt like. And at the end, I love you. But I just want you to know this is the feeling that I lived through from 0 to 10 years in my household. On my mark, get set, go. And then he does the crazy. And then I have the heartbreak and the hurt. And then he goes, I'm really, really sorry I had to do that. There was no way to explain it. I just had to put you through it. But that's what I lived through. So when you have a repeated experience around your partner that is hurtful, painful, or heartbreaking, try on that that's what they lived through. And it's an unconscious attempt to get sympathy. And so I'm constantly feeling this feeling around my husband whenever he's triggered. I'm like, oh my God, this is what he felt when he was a child. And he had no escape. And he was stuck in there for a decade. And then it pulls on my heartstrings and I can feel compassion for the little boy rather than anger towards the man.
Wow, that's so beautiful. I'm suddenly wanting to send compassion to the editors of this podcast because I think it's like more amazing, beautiful, valuable tools per minute than any other podcast we've got. I'm like, how are they going to pick the highlight reel? Because it's so good. The whole thing is a highlight reel.
Yay.
There's like 2 hours on Instagram. This is the reel. Annie, you're amazing. You're amazing. Thank you for all of the ways that you've helped me in romantic relationships and sisterhood, helped me to see my blind spots, helped me to repair, helped me to really, you've really helped me to see blind spots and shadows, which now I'm like, oh, it's a blind spot for a reason. Because it's like too much to conceptualize that about yourself. If it's really dark, you've really hurt someone.
Or you have shame around it. That's why it's in the blind spot. And so what I try to do is give dignity to that part of you that's hiding in the blind spots, hiding in your unconscious. And if it feels safe to come out into the light, I'm bringing my defense lawyer for that part so it feels safe to come into your consciousness.
Yes.
And then as soon, because you're such an evolutionary, as soon as you see it, you're like, oh, I know how to love this into submission. How do I love this part of me into its next level self?
Yeah. And you've really done that with me. Like I've never really done shadow work before or like, and now I feel like this thing that I was so ashamed of, this thing that I really couldn't see, like I would not let myself see because I was so ashamed of it, that now I just see it and I'm loving it and I'm repairing it and I'm bringing it into integrity. And it's painful and it's painstaking and probably expensive, but it's like, I'm doing it and I feel this level of trust in myself and I feel this level of self-esteem that is happening as a result of that, to the point where I'm like not even ashamed of the thing anymore.
Exactly.
I'm just like, yeah, I did that.
Because you're now behaving in a way that is increasing your self-esteem. It's not producing more shame. And so, as soon as you can see something that's at odds with your identity, that's why it goes into a blind spot, because it's at odds with your identity. And once we extended your identity to include that with having dignity, then it's allowed to come out and be integrated and be loved into submission. You can't shame a pattern into oblivion. You can only love it into submission.
Yeah, and like love it into wholeness, that all of these facets, 360 degrees, all of them are me, even the ones that I can't see.
Yeah.
And so it's like that compassion and that dignity for that allows me to see more of the 360 degrees of me, which is like a new frame that I have for wholeness. So thank you.
I love
Thank you. I love you so much. Wow. Annie Lala, I'm quite sure that everyone listening to this is so deeply in love with you. I'm certainly more in love with you. Well, how can people work with you? How can they find you? I know you have something exciting coming up on Valentine's Day.
Yeah. I mean, I work with private clients. I have my website. I have 10 questions on the website to find find out if you're really in love with someone or if they're in love with you.
That's so good. It's AnnieLala.com.
AnnieLala.com, 2 N's in Annie, 2 L's in Lala. I just launched a podcast a few months ago called Matters of the Heart.
Really?
Yeah, Matters of the Heart.
Amazing.
And it's one of my good friends, Michael, interviewing me and me coaching couples through their dilemmas.
Oh, wait, that's interesting.
Yeah.
So you're actually coaching couples in real time.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, on camera, so you can watch that. I run my own coaching school with my husband where we teach coaches, but I also run my own relationship coaching school because I want to build an army of relationship leaders.
Wow.
I mean-
so you run 2 coaching schools.
Yeah, one with
Wow.
my husband where we teach general coaching, and then one where I just teach the cutting edge technology for being a relationship leader in your own life and for couples or singles who want to coach in the romantic space.
Mm.
And I have my own systems and my own technology. And yeah, I mean, I do live events in Austin. I basically want to be a hub for the coolest couples on the planet.
Yeah. I mean, you're doing it.
Yeah.
You're working with all our friends. It's so cool.
Mhm.
Sweet friends, I hope that you enjoyed this conversation and this interview as much as I did. I hope you were taking notes. I would probably listen to this one again. I would send it to a friend. Send it to a friend that you're sick of hearing their complaints about their relationship. Share this episode with them so that they can get the outrageous wisdom from Annie Lala. Check out her work. She's truly world-class, revolutionary love coach. I've been working with her on and off for years, and I'm excited for this new chapter of our work together. And if you've learned something, what I would recommend is screenshot this, post it on Instagram. I'm at Ziva Meditation. Are you on Instagram?
Yeah, at Lallabird, Lallabird.
So tag us both, tell us what you learned, share your aha moments, share this media as medicine out with the world, because this is why we do it. We want to get these messages out into the world. And if ever there was a podcast to share, like, why isn't everyone believing in true love? One of the most healing, transformative, strongest drugs we can take without drugs. This is it. So I love you. I love you. I love you. Thank you for joining me on Why Isn't Everyone Doing This? If you liked it, you could leave a 5-star review. You could tell us what you took away in the comments. And I will see you next week on Why Isn't Everyone Doing This?